Most people who try saving money without a budget feel like they're doing everything right, transferring money into savings, patting themselves on the back, and then quietly watching that balance creep back down to zero a few weeks later. It's not a willpower problem, and it's not that they're bad with money. There's a specific mechanical reason this happens, and once you understand it, the whole cycle finally makes sense. Let's start with the core illusion. When you move $50 or $100 into a savings account, your brain registers something that feels a lot like finishing a task. Psychologists call this a completion signal, the same dopamine-adjacent reward loop that fires when you cross something off a to-do list. The problem is the brain doesn't distinguish between actually completing a task and merely starting one. You moved the money, check, done. Except nothing is done. The expenses that were always going to hit your checking account this month are still coming. The irregular bill you forgot about is still lurking. The spontaneous dinner out, the streaming subscription you never canceled, the parking ticket, all of it is still real. What happened is that you created a psychological finish line before the race even started. And because the brain already gave you the reward, it has very little motivation to protect that savings from the friction that comes next. Here's the actual mechanical sequence that plays out for most people. You get paid. You move some money to savings first. This is often called pay yourself first, and on the surface, it sounds like solid advice. But here's where the mechanism breaks down. Without a budget mapping out where the remaining money is supposed to go, your checking account becomes an ambiguous pool. You don't know exactly how much runway you have. You make purchase decisions based on a vague sense of, I still have enough. Then, around day 18 or 20 of the month, the checking account gets tighter than expected. Maybe an irregular expense showed up, a car repair, a higher utility bill, a birthday gift. Maybe it was just ordinary spending that added up faster than anticipated. At this point, the savings account stops feeling like savings and starts feeling like a buffer. One small transfer back, just this once, becomes two. Then the cycle resets next paycheck. This is the silent drain. It doesn't happen because people are reckless. It happens because there was never a system telling the remaining money where to go, so it drifted. And when money drifts, it almost always drifts towards spending. This is exactly why saving money without a budget so often ends in the same place it started. A lot of people carry an assumption that budgeting is for people who are bad with money, that if you're disciplined enough, or if you earn enough, you can skip it. This assumption has a name in behavioral economics. It's related to what researchers call optimism bias. The tendency to believe our future behavior will be more controlled and rational than our past behavior actually was. Every month, people genuinely believe this month will be different. They'll spend less on eating out. They'll remember the annual subscription. They won't have any surprises. And every month, reality doesn't cooperate because life is not a straight line. It's full of irregular, lumpy, unpredictable expenses that a static mental model of I earn X and spend roughly Y completely fails to capture. A budget isn't a moral document about your character, it's a map. And the reason budgeting before saving matters mechanically is that the map has to exist before you can know how much you can genuinely afford to set aside without creating a pressure gradient that pushes money back out of savings. If you're finding this useful, hit the like button. It genuinely helps more people stumble across this kind of explanation. So what does the functional sequence actually look like? The historical and behavioral evidence points to one consistent pattern: clarity before commitment. Before any money moves to savings, the fixed expenses for the month need to be mapped: rent or mortgage, utilities, subscriptions, minimum debt payments. Then the variable necessities get estimated: groceries, gas, transportation. Then, critically, a buffer gets allocated for irregular expenses. Most financial planning frameworks suggest somewhere in the range of 10 to 15% of take-home pay earmarked as a float for things that don't show up on a neat monthly schedule. And historical household spending data consistently shows that most people dramatically underestimate this category. Only after that full picture exists does it make sense to determine what can genuinely go to savings without creating the pressure gradient we talked about. This is the mechanical inversion that changes everything. Instead of saving and hoping the rest works out, you account for the rest first and then save whatever is structurally safe to save. The savings number might be smaller than you wanted. And that's real, valuable information. A smaller number that stays in savings is worth more than a larger number that comes back out. This is also why the advice to just automate your savings can backfire without the underlying budget architecture in place. Automation removes friction, but if the underlying math doesn't work, removing friction just makes the drain faster. The core takeaway here isn't that saving is bad or that paying yourself first is wrong as a concept. It's that the mechanism only holds when there's a map underneath it. The brain's completion signal, the ambiguous checking account, the optimism bias about future spending. The invisible irregular expenses, these aren't character flaws, they're documented, predictable patterns in human financial behavior. Understanding them is what changes the outcome. The question of why someone can't seem to save money is almost never about motivation. It's almost always about sequence. And sequence is something anyone can change. If this kind of mechanics-first explanation of how money actually works resonates with you, consider subscribing. There's a lot more of this kind of breakdown on the channel, and the like button helps other people who are searching for real answers find their way here.